Anchors up, sails at full. Welcome to the Sloopcast. How are you doing today, Austin?
Doing well, Jared. Happy to be back for a second Thursday in a row. Filling in for Kyle, big shoes to fill, but happy to be here for an episode that, and hopefully this doesn't make me look a little cocky, but an episode that's a lot about me. So happy to be here.
Yeah, this is a unique episode, especially from my perspective, because I don't have a whole lot of idea of what's about to happen. If you were listening at the beginning of the year, Austin is sort of our over-unders champion, I guess you could say. If you've ever heard us do the Know Your Enemy section, we always do Austin's over-unders. If you're a bit dense and you haven't figured it out yet, this is the same Austin. Before the season started, we did preseason over-unders. And the preseason over-unders were exactly what you might expect that to be. It was over-unders for the entire season. Now, Kyle and I did that show, and we had a lot of fun. And I didn't realize until this week that Austin was actually keeping count. So I'm going to be held accountable. And I don't necessarily know how to feel about this. Even though Kyle's not on the show today, he's still on assignment. We're also holding Kyle accountable here.
Absolutely. And I think the best part about this is that I already know the results because I went through and obviously I made the over-unders. I knew what they were, and I went back and listened to the podcast. And so sitting here being giddy, knowing what's about to happen.
Yeah.
Whereas Jared gets to sit there.
No idea.
Sort of squirm a little bit, and so it should be a fun episode.
Yeah, I'm totally out of control right now, and I'm doing my best to cope with that. So we'll see what happens.
07.
Yes.
All right. You ready to get started, Jared?
Kyle's gonna hack the call. He literally all he'd have to do, Bulldoggy, is join the room.
That's it.
He didn't leave the Discord server. He's just a little busy right now.
It's true. All right, Jared, I've got a fun mini game within the game that I also didn't tell you about, so I'm going to spring this on you as well. So obviously I have the numbers. I also went through, not only did I check to see if it was over under, but I also recorded the correct amount for every over under.
Okay.
So as I give you the over-under, I want you to tell me what you think the number actually was for this season.
So not only are you holding past Jared accountable, now you're going to hold current Jared accountable.
That is correct. I figure we can jump both ends right there.
Should never have given you power.
All right, first one is coming up. Passes thrown by a quarterback not named CJ Stroud. The over-under was at 48.5.
Okay, I'm pretty sure I said under, and 2, I'm pretty sure it was in fact under.
So you said over.
I said over.
Kyle also said over. It was under. Kyle McCord only threw 20 passes on the season, which feels extremely low. I mean, obviously last season, not this season that just passed, but the 2021 season, he had the game where he came in and played the whole game for CJ Stroud. Kyle McCord started that game, but
I think Miller got a fair number of snaps, and I don't think he played the entire game.
Miller?
Not Miller. He left for Florida.
Oh yeah, it was Jack Miller. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, it was Miller. Why? Don't gaslight me.
My head immediately went to Braxton, and I was like, "You're a little off there, pal."
Whoa, no.
All right, so you and Kyle were both incorrect on that one. Next one was players with at least one recorded carry on the season. Now this number was set at 8.5.
Recorded obviously, carries? Oh man.
How many players do you think got a carry this season, Jared? The number was 8.5.
So CJ Stroud, Henderson, Chop. Spike says 10.
That's a good guess.
God, there were, okay, hold on. I'm going to say 2 quarterbacks,
okay,
3 running backs.
Way more than that.
Well, hold on. 3 running backs, 1 linebacker,
Oh.
1 wide receiver / running back. And then there had to have been an end around or something like that in there at certain points as well. So I'll say 2 wide receivers,
Okay.
a fullback.
That gets you up to 10 right there.
Yeah. I think that's about it.
Yeah, so the correct answer is 14.
Jeez.
Because you're also forgetting Caffey.
I am forgetting Caffey.
There were Buka obviously did. I'm not sure if it was Marvin Harrison that got one as well. I think Devin Brown had a carry. So that's another one. And then also remember Mirko on the fake punt, another carry. So all of that adds up to being 14. Funny enough, Kyle took the over and was correct. You took the under and were incorrect.
I don't think that's very funny, but okay.
Next one, OSU points allowed per game. The number was at 20.5. I'm going to tell you, this was my best number that I had in the over-unders.
We were real feast or famine on this. I'm going to guess
these numbers are based on a 14-game season, so 13-14 game season. So it did include the postseason. So we can't include the Georgia game here.
We are including Georgia?
Correct.
I'm going to say it's over, but not by a lot.
That is correct. The number was 20.5. We gave up 21 points per game, which pretty decent from last year, but would have liked for it to have been under. I think we improved by just a few points per game. So you and Kyle both got that correct, but it was pretty close.
Yeah.
Honestly,
compared to what I think that do you know off the top of your head what it was last year?
I want to say it was 23.4, but that could be wrong.
Okay. All right.
It was somewhere about though. It was somewhere in there. Maybe it was 24.3, somewhere in there.
Okay.
Opposite of that, OSU points scored per game. The number was at 45.5. You and Kyle both took the over.
Okay.
Where do you think it landed?
I think it probably went over.
It didn't. It landed at the under, 44.2. So we were a whole 1.3 points per game worse this year than last year, which is interesting. I mean, it makes sense when you think about the fact that we lost to Olave, we lost Wilson, but Marvin Harrison had a great season,
and lost Henderson, and lost KJ. God, why do I always, when I can't pull his name, say KJ Hill, JSN? Yeah.
Northwestern was the game that skewed it. That's a really good point.
And
Northwestern did skew it. Yeah. That's a really good point. Northwestern, where we only scored 10, or how was it 10 that we scored? I think it was something like that, right? 13, 17, 17,
21.
Right? Was that? I don't know. It was 21.
We didn't go under 20 all year.
No. But yeah, I mean, when you score 21 and your average is 44, that's going to bring the number down quite a bit. So
yeah.
The next one I'm also pretty proud of. It was wide receiver touchdowns at 38.5. You went under, Kyle went over.
Wide receiver touchdowns. I'm gonna say it hit the under.
It did hit the under, but it was 37. So it was only it was pretty close. So again, if that Northwestern game goes another way, or if Marvin Harrison Jr. doesn't get hurt in the Peach Bowl, if any small things like that happen.
I'm just gonna be real with you, Austin. I think this is an entire exercise in you showing how close your over-unders were.
No. It gets much worse. I gathered this as I was going through. I was like, okay, I'm doing a pretty good job through like the first 7, and then the middle 14 is not great. It's really not great. So trust me, we'll get there, because I had the same reaction. I was like, well, this is just going to be me gloating, and then it's not.
Well, okay. We need a through point here, right? So what I think we need is we need a score counter. How are Kyle and I doing currently?
So I have your total scores at the end.
Do we have it? Do we have it tabulated so far?
I can tell you if you give me a second. So we've got, let's see, Kyle has 1. So Kyle currently has 2. You currently have 1.
Out of 7?
Out of 5.
Oh, okay.
So if someone in the chat wants to keep track for us, because
I got it.
I can't do those mental gymnastics. Oh, you got it? All right.
I think.
Yeah, so currently it is 2-1 in Kyle's favor. But I'll go ahead and talk about this next one, which is tight end receptions. That was set at 36.5. Now, keep in mind, Ohio State was looking at replacing Ruckert, who was a receiving tight end, someone that lined up as a receiver most often. We thought that G. Scott would end up having a decent little year. So with that in mind, 36.5. Where do you think it landed, Jared? You and Kyle both took the under.
I would say under as well.
So it hit the over and by a pretty substantial margin. There were actually, maybe it is the year of the tight end, there were 45 catches by tight ends this year, which is pretty substantial. I mean, Stover had 36 by himself, which I whenever I was going through the numbers, that was one of the more surprising ones for me.
I agree.
Can we get some year of the tight end in the chat, boys?
Little year of the tight end in the chat. Thank you.
Little Yachty. Thank you.
Get a little Yachty.
Little Yachty.
Yeah.
So both of you got that one wrong. So we're off to a really really
it's
a really good start.
I'm working on it. All right, I'm working on it.
I see that. Yeah. Next one, which pains me to talk about at the very moment, but Ruggles' kicking percentage. This was set at 92.
On earth is this doing?
I don't know.
Okay, I don't have the score on. I was trying to put the score on the screen. It wasn't working.
They'll keep it in the chat. It's down there.
Okay.
We got the K equals 2 and the J equals 1. So
I appreciate it.
Like I said, this one's a little more difficult, but Ruggles' field goal kicking percentage, 92.5. Also, if you can't see the score because you're not watching on YouTube, still appreciate you. But
still appreciate you.
Still want you to check us out on YouTube though. Do you know is there an exact handle for that, Jared? Or is it just search Sloopcast?
YouTube.thesloopcast.com, or we're also on the Buckeye Huddle network.
Perfect.
So we post episodes to both of those channels.
Cool. So yeah, Ruggles' field goal kicking percentage 92.5. If you remember, his number last season was 97 or 97.5.
Okay. I think he had a pretty good year, honestly. Over?
Well under. It was 85%.
Really?
To be fair, you and Kyle both took the under, so you were correct. So both of you get a point there. But the issue was that he only, and you talked about this in the episode at the beginning of the year, so kudos to you, I guess, on this one, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But you were like, if he misses some early, he's not going to have too many attempts to get it back. And that's kind of what happened. So he ended up being 17 out of 20, which is still a pretty good year. And I think he was 47 of 48 for extra points. But, 17 out of 20 is still 85%. So not quite the 92.5 that we were looking for. Next one was true linebacker interception. So that would probably be just Cody Simon, Tommy Eichenberg, and Steel Chambers at 6.5. And Kyle both did take the under. Say
that one again for me. Sorry.
Yeah, true linebacker interception. So that's Cody Simon, Tommy Eichenberg, and Steel Chambers, and it was at 6.5.
I think that went over.
No, it was well under. It was only 3.
Really?
Steel Chambers had 2, and Tommy Eichenberg had 1. Cody Simon did not have any. I mean, and you talked about this as well.
Yeah,
so,
there wasn't a lot of linebackers on the field.
Exactly. Yeah. A lot more safeties on the field. When they're playing typically 3 safeties or maybe an end in place of another linebacker. When you only have 2 linebackers on the field, it's a lot harder for them to get turnovers. I still think the linebackers were a big part of the turnovers we had this year. Part of that was the secondary struggles, but Steel Chambers in particular had a really good year getting turnovers specifically. I think he forced some fumbles as well. So 6.5 was a lofty number to go for, especially for the linebackers. But I'm still pretty happy with the 3 that they got.
Yeah. I don't think that's their job. Quite frankly,
it's not. Yeah, I mean, dropping back into zone, maybe sometimes you like for them to get 1 or 2, but they didn't get 1 or 2. They got 3. So
yeah.
Next one is team sacks. The over-under was set at 44.5. Do you remember what you went for on this one?
I don't remember what I went for, but it has to be under, right? I don't think they
Yeah,
got that many. Way under.
Yeah, it's well under. It's 34. And yeah, indeed, everyone did take the over. The idea was the defense will be a lot more revamped and we would get a lot more pressure. And I feel like we did get more pressure. It just didn't really result in sacks sometimes.
Yeah, that's totally accurate. That's totally accurate.
You both miss out on a point
missed.
there.
All right, Kyle 4, Jared 3.
It's tight. So it stays tight pretty much throughout the entire thing as a spoiler, but you'll see what happens there in the end. Team fumbles recovered. So this is Ohio State's defense recovering fumbles. The over-under is at 10.5.
I say 1 was under and 2 that I picked the under.
Those are both correct. Yeah. So,
yeah, that number feels big.
Well, so it isn't right, because Ohio State recovered 7, which is still quite a bit. They only forced. I say only. They forced 10. So that number probably should have been how many did they force rather than how many did they recover. But yeah, it was well under, unfortunately. I think you're going to know Kyle also took the under, so you both got it correct. You're not going to gain any ground on him here. Sorry about that.
Yeah, I don't even want to be right at this point. I just want to beat Kyle.
Just want to beat Kyle.
That's the story of my life.
We miss you, Kyle, wherever you are.
Kyle always wins.
Like we don't know where he is. We know where
he
is, but
I said he's on assignment, but it's super secret assignment. Only the CIA knows where Kyle's at right now.
That implies we're in the CIA, but I'll move on. OSU final college football playoff ranking over under 2.5. Obviously, we know the answer. Their final college football ranking was 4.
4. Yeah.
You and Kyle both took the under, thinking they would either be ranked 1 or 2. Unfortunately, it was over. So that's a pretty easy one to keep track of. But I don't think it was a bad. I mean, if Ohio State beats Michigan, Ohio State's ranked 2 or 1. So
yeah. And for what it's worth, I legitimately think they're one of the 2 best teams in the country this past season.
Yeah.
Despite losing to Michigan. And of course, like that was a 50-50 game with Georgia.
There's an argument to be made. And listen, Georgia won fair and square. Georgia is the national champion. I acknowledge that, not taking any of that away from him. There is an argument to be made that Ohio State was the best team in the country this year, and they're just not ready for that conversation.
Right. Gangland says, we said during the offseason that injuries were one thing that could hold this team back. That's true of all teams. And honestly, I would love to have known how I would have answered that question among many of these other questions. Had you told me, Henderson would be banged up for the entire year and never be himself. You're JSN. Not going to have JSN for the entire season. You aren't going to have, I don't know if we knew about Evan Pryor. Did we know about Evan Pryor?
We did, because otherwise, you know how big of an Evan Pryor fan I am. I would have had an over-under about Evan Pryor. This is like the week that we found out that he was going to be out. But still, you know, I mean, losing your third running back versus losing your number 1 running back, your number 2 running back, your number 1 wide receiver, like it hurts for sure.
Yeah.
So, but the man behind it all, CJ Stroud, his numbers for interceptions this year, the over-under was set at 7.5.
Ooh, I think that's probably a close number, but it's below it. I want to say he threw 6 or 5.
He did throw 6, and you and Kyle both said under, so you're correct. So
yeah, okay.
It's like you can't gain any ground. That's the issue.
Yeah, that's the issue. Kind of agreed too damn much. It's a problem that goes back to day 1 on this podcast.
We're gonna get to some ones where you guys pick opposite ones, so we'll get there in a second. But this next one you guys also agreed on, which is Trey Henderson rushing touchdowns. This one feels wrong because the number was 19.5.
Yeah,
which he very well could have hit had he been healthy the whole year. You both went over, so you don't get a point. But the number was only 6. But that one feels not fair. I'm still counting it against you. But it does feel a bit unfair.
Yeah. I tell you what, if I were I'm just saying this right now. If I were doing this, if I had done this for money, I would have taken the under. I think just because like you always have to equate for the possibility of injuries and all that.
Hey, Jared, you want to hear something a little funny?
Sure.
Branding.
Branding?
Yeah, look at the branding you have right below you.
Oh. Of course, now what is this Scarlet and grade? Is that what this is? Since we're grading my,
it feels Scarlet grade. It feels Scarlet grade.
Okay,
that feels right.
I was trying to fix some audio stuff before the show started, and I wasn't even thinking about it. I guess this is a Scarlet and grade. So welcome to Scarlet and grade, everybody. There we go.
Yeah, I hope you enjoyed your time in Sloop Cats Only, because
it's a secret preview of the secret.
If you don't know what Sloop Cats Only is, you can feel free to join us at discord.sloopcast.com and we can tell you all about it, or you can just immediately join on patreon.sloopcast.com, become a patron, and there's a secret Wednesday episode that during the season Kyle and Jared come on. We just talk about literally anything, some things that you might want to talk about, some things that are very interesting. So if you're
we talked about public transportation this week.
See that you're not selling anyone with that, Jared. That's part of the issue. But if you're interested in that, come join us. Discord.thesloopcast.com and Patreon.thesloopcast.com.
Sometimes Sometimes we talk about starting a cult.
That was this week, right? I think not actually starting a cult, probably.
Mm-hmm. I might just be like softening you guys up on the idea. Cults always start as a joke.
Back to the football. Speaking of Colts, Ohio State football. Ohio State longest touchdown from scrimmage on the season by yardage. Over under 85.5. Now, do you remember any big plays this season, Jared?
I mean, yeah, but I don't think they hit an 85 plus.
So it is
Julian Fleming versus Iowa Gangland says.
That's a really good guess. I think that is the correct answer for the longest play. Do you remember how long it was, Gangland? If you had to guess.
He says 82.
It's a really good guess. The correct answer is 79. So it was under. Yeah. And what I thought was funny about this was Jared went on during the episode where you guys answered these questions. Jared went on a whole, not a ramble, but a whole talk about how, well, I'm not sure if Ohio State's ever going to get pinned back deep enough for it to be above 85. And he made some really good points. So Kyle was like, you know what? I agree. I take the under. And then Jared just took the over anyways and got it wrong.
I'm so pissed at me right now.
Previous Jared, why didn't you listen to yourself? That's where we're at. So yeah. So Kyle got a point there and Jared did not.
So not only did I steal the point from myself, but I also gave the point to Kyle.
Correct. Yeah, that's basically exactly what happened. I hope you, the viewers at home, are enjoying this because I know that I am.
This is a great episode if you hate me.
Can I get some Team Kyles in the chat? Team Kyles in the chat, right down there. We're almost, this is halfway through. So we are at Xavier Johnson yardage. Now, this was confirmed on the podcast to be all purpose. Okay, so the over-under was at 321.5.
Okay. He went over that.
You and Kyle, he went well over that, and you and Kyle both went under.
Yeah.
He had 269 yards, nice, on just returns, and then 297 through rushing and receiving. So for a total of 566.
So we did include return yardage. Yeah.
It's hard because you don't ever really know who's going to be the returner as well.
You don't ever. Yeah. You can't gamble that he actually was going to win the returning job, and he didn't have the returning job the entire season.
No.
Who would have foreseen him taking as many snaps at running back as he did? there were
in
more.
the Peach Bowl, he even had some reps at receiver as well. And in some other games he did as well with some, with Marvin Harrison going out. Xavier Johnson was actually the next guy off the bench.
Right. And he also got snaps. Mecca missed time. Julian Fleming missed time. He got a lot of snaps this year, a lot more than I think we were expecting.
And honestly, he did a great job.
Yeah.
For someone who walked onto Ohio State, I've seen a lot of people on Twitter, which I know is a wasteland. However, I've seen a lot of people on Twitter talking about the fact that, oh my gosh, we have these 5-star talents sitting on the bench and we're playing Xavier Johnson. If he's the best player, he's going to play.
Right.
If you don't know this about me, I coach football. I am nowhere near the coach of Ryan Day. I trust his judgment and his staff's judgment way more than I trust my own or any armchair coach as well. So if they think that Xavier Johnson deserves to play over those 5-star guys, then he's earned it. He works hard. He's still super. I mean, you saw the spin move that he put on the Peach Bowl. The guy deserves to play. Sorry. Yeah. I love Xavier Johnson, and I will not take any slander over X.
No, I agree. And I think there is value in rewarding your practice players.
Absolutely.
I think a lot of people don't like that concept because they just think, well, if X is, I can't say X here because we're talking about Xavier as an example. If player B is, more talented, then they should be playing over player C. But C gets more time because he's a good practice player, and people get all pissy about that. Well, guess what? If you don't reward your practice players, no one's going to practice hard.
No, and I guarantee you, Xavier Johnson has made a lot of the guys that play receiver at Ohio State better for just showing up to practice and doing what he does. So all the guys that you're enamoring to get, you want them on the field right now because they're 5-stars and they're going to be true sophomores this year and they're going to be true juniors next year or whatever it might be. Xavier Johnson is mentoring those guys. Like, that's a guy that you're going to see on the jugs machine late at night. You're going to see him putting in work in film room. Like, that's the guy you want in that room, and you want him getting playing time so that he can show those younger guys, hey, this is how we do it at Ohio State.
Yeah, so. And it's, also consider that there's not a ton of, not at the beginning of the season anyway, a ton of leadership in that wide receiver room. No. You had Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave who both leave at the same time. That creates a leadership vacuum.
That's what X was. So speaking of wide receivers though, Jared, I have another unfortunate one for you. Jackson Smith and Jigba receptions at 91.5.
Yeah. We take the L, we move on.
Yeah. Do you want to, so you both obviously said over, the answer was under. Do you want to guess how many receptions JSN had this year? Do you know the answer?
4?
Close. It was 5. He had 5 receptions. Yeah. I think he had like 2 or 3, maybe 4 against Notre Dame. And he had 1 or 2 against Iowa when he came in and played that. So don't worry, Gangland, I'm ahead of you. I got you. That is fun. He played like 2 snaps against Notre Dame.
No,
I mean he got 5 catches. So I think he played like the first half against Notre Dame. Did he not?
I don't remember specifically when he left, but yeah,
he got 5 catches. So. One that's near and dear to Kyle's heart. Ohio State defensive and special teams touchdowns at over under 3.5.
I was reading the chat. Would you say that one again for me?
Ohio State defensive and special teams touchdowns at 3.5.
Okay. No return touchdowns.
Sorry, Kyle.
Yeah. Sorry, Kyle. There was a blocked punt. I don't think it went for, did it go for a touchdown?
I don't believe so.
There a few blocked punts. I don't think any touchdowns from it, Gangland says. I think that's correct. Regardless, I think it's under.
It is under. You and Kyle did both say over, so you got this one wrong as well. The 2 touchdowns off the top of my head, I believe, were Tommy Eichenberg pick 6.
Yeah.
And JT
against Iowa
pick 6.
Yeah.
So JT and Tommy Eichenberg with the 2 pick 6s, and those are the ones that went back for scores. Unfortunately, Ohio State still does not have a return touchdown, so it's pretty sad. Another one that
Ransom blocked 2 from what Gangland remembers. Yeah,
he
neither
did,
of
but none
those
of those
went
went for
into the end
touchdowns.
zone. Yeah.
So Ohio State, 3 receivers, Jackson Smith and Jigba, Marvin Harrison Jr., and Fleming, total yards at 3409.5. Obviously, we didn't get that. It was
Right.
well under with 1839, but that's with like 34 yards coming from JSN. So Fleming
Yeah.
and Marvin Harrison Jr. ended up with about 1,800 yards between the two of them, which is pretty good. I wanted to see what the number would be if you included Emeka Egbuka in those numbers instead of
Yeah.
JSN. It still only comes up to 2956, but I think if you switch out, and no offense to Julian Fleming, he's a good receiver, but compared to Jackson Smith and Jigba, if you swap those two guys out, could have hit that number, but it was going to be hard even without the injuries. And then
and then like I already said, but for the sake of saying it, Emeka Egbuka and Fleming also missed time this year.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there was guys that got yards, took those yards away from those guys. They could have hit that number. So, but good news, Jared. You and Kyle finally got one right again. Both of you, though. So you
God.
Go ahead.
Yeah. But so it's 8-6 now.
It is 8-6. Yeah.
Okay. We haven't added any in a minute, so I wasn't sure.
It's been a little while. So Ohio State sacks by defensive ends.
Okay.
The number was 24.5.
No. Got a lot of pressure, got a lot of hurries.
I will say this number was higher than what I thought it was going to be.
Well, that's the thing. I almost just straight up said no, absolutely not. But then I started like doing a bit of the math, and I think it's closer than most people would expect it to be, but not there. Didn't get that. Yeah, and I'll also say that I probably predicted an over on this.
You and Kyle both predicted an over. It was only 15.5. So it was 9 lower, but in my head, I'm thinking through the season, and before I looked at the number, I was like, oh, it's probably like a 10 or 11. We didn't really get that many sacks in defensive ends, but I mean, you got to consider JT had that one huge game, Zach Harrison, he had a pretty good game in the Peach Bowl, getting a couple sacks, and all that eventually adds up, and so they ended up right at 15.5. So
yeah, and Javonte Jean-Baptiste had a couple, a few.
Sawyer, yeah, it all adds up. So this next one is one of my favorites. I think one of everyone's favorites, but it's Cam Bob touchdowns at 3.5. Obviously, we all know it went under, but Jared, again, a little bit of kudos to you. You said, and I quote, "I really like to think that Bob gets a touchdown this year, at least one." And sure enough, Bob got his one touchdown. So you both did say under, so you both get a point. But shout out to Cam Bob
for sure. Bonus
next one,
bonus segment.
Sure.
Who gets the 0 next year? Who gets the block O?
So there's a couple options, right? Who did Bob have it this year, right?
Yeah, that's why I asked. Yeah.
I think there's a really good chance it goes to Steel Chambers. That's
Bulldog. You said
Eichenberg. Who I think of.
So
if he comes back, maybe, but I think he's going pro. If you're making me guess who actually gets it, I'm probably going Eichenberg. And listen, I know this isn't going to happen, but just imagine a world where CJ Stroud comes back and gets the block. It's not going to happen. I 100% know that. He's 100% gone. I get it. But if he does, for some crazy reason, decide to come back, he's 100% gets it. So,
yeah. Xavier Johnson for Blocko.
Another good choice could very well be him. I think if everything goes as it's supposed to, and the people that we think are going to leave, and the people that we think are going to come back, I think it ends up being between Chambers and Johnson.
Yeah. Chambers is a good one. Johnson's a good one. I'm not 100. I don't know if I don't think I have like 100% answer yet, but yeah, I've personally been leaning Steel. I've personally been leaning Steel.
I don't know about my end. I mean, he came back, but he's a redshirt sophomore, so I don't feel like he's done enough. Hasn't been like as vocal enough of a leader. Jones could get a Blocko patch. No offense to him, I don't think he's getting it.
Yeah. Jones, by the way, Whippler officially leaving, Jones officially returning. Don't be surprised if Jones moves to center this year.
That would be the more obvious move. I think you see probably Donovan Jackson maybe at this point with all those guys leaving, bump out to tackle, very possibly. If not, he'll play left guard, but bump out to tackle probably, and then we see Matt Jones playing center. So.
I think ideally what Ohio State would like would be, I believe, Matt Jones at center, Enoch Famahi at right guard, and Donovan Jackson at left guard.
Right.
This is a thing
you're going to run into is, do we have the two tackles that are good enough to play out there?
And I think they have a right tackle. I don't know if they have a left tackle, which is why you don't necessarily know where Donovan Jackson's going to play. I think they would rather he play at guard, but they're prepared to play him at tackle. And if you want more depth chart conversation, I just released an episode with the one and only Tony Gerdeman on Monday.
Yeah, go watch Toby, the GOAT. Please go watch him.
Can we get some Tony the Goats in chat, please?
Well. I forgot we have that emoji. Go ahead and put that down there. I love being right. I don't know why Kyle doesn't use this more. I love being right above the chat, so I can just go like this.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know either. Yeah. I also don't know why no one's listening. I guess I'll do it. God.
While you're doing that, Jared, I'll talk on the next one, which is an interesting one at this point, and it's Dallin Hayden carries at 71.5.
I know I went under on this. I know.
So then it was well over. It was 111.
Yeah. And I probably went, not only did I say under on this, I probably went on a huge rant about how the third running back at Ohio State never gets any carries and that this number is way too high. And I probably did a whole thing, probably blasting you for how outrageously high the number was.
So Kyle said under and you said over.
What?
So you gained one on that one on Kyle.
Okay.
Yeah. See, self-deprecation sometimes isn't the best choice. Next one coming up. We're getting close to the end. We're on number 22 of 30. CJ Stroud passing yards at 4,919.5, so 4,919.5. Not much to talk about this one. He had in terms of yardage, he regressed a lot this season. Not to say he didn't have skill, but I mean, just didn't throw the ball as much. He ended up throwing, I think, 110 less passes than he did the year before.
Right.
Which is kind of insane.
So I would say a large part of that was that the defense played considerably better this year, so they didn't have to throw the ball as much. Sure. On top of that, just, not having, he lost his, we don't talk about this enough. He lost his 4 top pass catchers from the previous season. We didn't know he was going to lose JSN at the beginning of the season, but he did. So Olave, Wilson, JSN, Ruckert, those were your 4 top pass receivers the year before, and he lost all 4 of them. Regression was going to happen. And again, the defense was better, so they weren't throwing the ball all over the yard nearly as much in the third and fourth quarters this year.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we had another one with CJ right after that. Oh, by the way, you both said under, so you both get a point there. I don't know if I said that, but you both get a point.
Nice.
So then we've got another CJ stat, which honestly, besides the one that I spoke about earlier, I'm pretty proud of this one too, because you guys kind of laughed at me whenever I gave you this number, and it ended up being extremely close. CJ Stroud rushing yards. The over-under was 121.5. And the year prior, remember, he ended up with -20. So 121.5. Do you know where he landed?
I'm gonna say slightly over that.
No, slightly under, but still. Okay. He landed at 108, which pretty decent. I mean, 128 more yards than he did the year before.
Right.
When you have -20 is a pretty significant amount. So no, not 119, unfortunately, gangland. So you and Kyle also get a point for that one.
All right.
So we're on a little bit of a streak here. Let's see if it continues. We've got Kyle McCord touchdowns at 4.5.
Okay. I don't know what I would have. I don't know what I would have said on this. He did not throw that many.
I mean, you're right. He didn't. I don't think he threw any.
I was honestly trying to think of one.
I believe he ran in a touchdown. I could be wrong, but he got one touchdown in the season.
So he threw one, ran one, or
no? I think he just had one total.
Oh, okay. He had one to Ballard.
You're right. So that must have been his one touchdown. So yeah, he must not have rushed for one. But yeah, so he had one total. So
okay,
he had that one Ballard touchdown, the long one, and that was it. Unfortunately, you and Kyle both took the over for some reason. So
the presumption being that he was going to get more time because Ohio State was going to be up more, and that they were going to pull CJ Stroud. And quite frankly,
maybe
if I'm going to criticize, I don't, Ryan Day is getting too much criticism thrown at him, so I hesitate to criticize, but I would have liked to have seen Kyle McCord get more late game. I think he should have pulled CJ Stroud sooner than he did in several games.
Well, I think even through the weekly over-unders, we kind of talked a little bit about this, especially during the games where it was like, okay, we're playing Toledo, we're playing Arkansas State. Some of my questions to you guys were like, okay, how many snaps does Kyle McCord get? Okay, how many passes does Kyle McCord get? And it was always hitting the under. And it was like, man, it's because he's not getting in the game until there's only one drive left. He's not getting in at the beginning of the fourth quarter when you're up, 35, 42 points. Like, you would hope and you would know that Arkansas State and Toledo aren't coming back from that. But, and part of it, I think, is that they knew that CJ had a decent chance to go get a Heisman and all those other things. But
I also think Ryan Day needed to learn how to trust his defense again.
Sure. Yeah. And I think next year, because here's the thing about the quarterback battle that some people aren't understanding, is that Devin Brown's not leaving. If he wins the job, awesome. He's super excited. He's gonna be the starter at Ohio State for the next 2 years, right?
At least.
Sure. If he wants to stay longer than that, feel free. He's a really talented guy. If he loses the quarterback battle, okay, cool. I'm gonna sit behind Kyle McCord for one more year, and then the job's mine the year after that, and it will be because I would assume he would have to battle Keenholz, but you would hope after being in the system for 3 years or 2 years or however many years it would be, that you'd be able to win the job. And so now if Devin Brown wins and Kyle McCord leaves, that's a possibility. But I say all that to say that I would hope that Devin Brown gets more snaps this year than Kyle McCord got last year.
I would say probably not. And I base that off of Kyle McCord needing snaps.
Sure.
I just think they're not going to pull him very quickly because they're going to want him to get as many snaps under his belt, during the lighter portion of the schedule, especially like those 2 games leading up to Notre Dame. They're going to want to make sure he's as ready for that as possible. So those would be prime games for him to leave early, and they probably won't let him leave early because he needs the game snaps.
See, but it feels a little 6 in one hand, half dozen in the other, because it's the exact opposite of sort of what happened this year, where it's like, well, CJ Stroud knows what he's doing, and he's played in so many games. We're going to leave him in there anyway, so who knows what they're going to do.
But those were for different reasons. The Heisman thing, absolutely. The learning to trust his defense again thing, I think those were other motivating factors. Those are different factors. Play Brown against Youngstown State. Probably not.
Youngstown State. I have my Youngstown State scarf somewhere. So. Amount of players with a receiving touchdown, Jared. The number was 10.5.
Amount of players with a receiving touchdown, 10.5. It went over. I think it went way over.
It did not go over. The answer is 10.
Okay.
Only 10 players got a receiving touchdown. You got to think JSN didn't get one. So that's one player off the board. I think,
I was thinking, so I think you had at least 2 tight ends. Did G. Scott get a touchdown this year?
Scott got one, and Stover got one.
Yeah. I think Rossi only got him on the ground.
Correct. So then you got
then
Xavier
1,
Johnson.
2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, I guess I'm running out of receivers pretty quick.
Yeah.
I can only think of 1 to a running back. It's not to say there weren't, but I can only think of the Henderson touchdown. So yeah, I guess not.
Yeah, I mean, you probably aren't thinking of Ballard, so you add one for that. So you got, Xavier Johnson, Emeka Egbuka, Julian Fleming, Marvin Harrison, Ballard, Cam Bob, 2 of the tight ends, and then 2 running backs, and that puts you at 10 right there. So
I'm gonna say I predicted over.
Yeah, that's correct. You and Kyle both said over. So
I expected Ryan Day to put the backup offense in much sooner than he ended up doing. And who's the other running back with a catch? I don't think there was one. I think it was only Trey. But I could be wrong as well.
Yeah, I didn't write down exactly who got each one, but it was, yeah. So that kind of goes into a little bit what you were just talking about, Jared, with the next one, which is Ohio State total passing attempts, which the year before, I think
well reduced.
It was like, yeah, it was well reduced. I think the year before it was like 530 something or 540 something. And so this year was, I put the number at 517.5, and it was well under. So it was 409, and you and Kyle both got that correct. So
yeah, I think we were anticipating not as much late game throwing. All right, Kyle 12, Jared 11. I'm still needing to see you say, oh, you guys were actually pretty close. It's because we agreed too damn much.
Well, this is a good one for you, Jared. See if you know the answer to this one. All right. Ohio State team fumbles lost.
Okay.
6.5.
I'm gonna say I think it went under than that. I don't think they lost that many fumbles.
So we lost 4 fumbles, so it was under. But how many times do you think we fumbled throughout the season?
I think there were many fumbles. I don't think many of them were lost. I think there were a few went out of bounds, a few that recovered right away. I don't know what the number was, but I think there were a fair number of fumbles, just not lost fumbles.
So Ohio State actually forced the same number of fumbles as they fumbled themselves. So they fumbled 10, lost 4.
Okay.
So not too bad. And you and Kyle do both get a point for that one. So
okay. 13-12.
Not too bad. Now there's only 3 questions left. So
okay.
And we'll save that one for last. Let's go OSU team rushing yards per game.
Rushing yards per game.
171.5.
Okay. I'm gonna say they're slightly over that.
They're actually pretty substantially over that at 192.5.
It was between the number and 200.
Sure. Yeah, that's the way to look at it, I guess. So it was over, and you and Kyle both went over, so you both get a point for that one as well.
Okay. Do I even have a chance to pass him at this point?
Yeah, there's two left.
Yeah, but what are the chances we disagreed on both of them?
I mean, you only have to disagree on one to tie.
I didn't want to tie. CJ
Stroud completion percentage.
Okay.
Over under 73.1.
73.1. I'm going to say he went under that. That was a pretty lofty number.
He did go under that.
Yeah.
By quite a bit. 66.3. He regressed in terms of completion percentage this year as well, which is makes sense. You're losing your best receivers. And you even mentioned that on the podcast. You're talking about how, well, he's losing, some sure-handed receivers. He's losing Wilson. He's losing Olave. Like, it's going to be a little bit tougher for him. And then you still went over. So,
God damn me.
Fortunately for you, Kyle agreed. So you both don't get a point. So
the best I can do is tie him.
Best you can do is tie. And this last one was pretty close. I'll go ahead and say the bonus one, which is, of course, amount of dams we get for the whole state of Michigan. It was at 0.5, and you both said under. So I'll give you a free point for that one. So you can both have a point. Okay. Just to bump up those totals a little bit,
Yeah. Thanks, Spikes.
So So last one, Ohio State sacks allowed on the season.
Okay.
The number.
Do Kyle and I differ is what I need to know.
The number was 14 and a half.
Okay.
How many did they give up?
It's under that. I think they only allowed like 6 or 7 going into Georgia. Then they had a few against Georgia. But I'm going to say it's under that.
So it is under. It's 12. And part of what you talked about, which ended up being very, actually, Kyle talked about this a little bit more, was that they had an entire offensive line not last season, but the 2021 season, excuse me, about how they had an entire offensive line of tackles. They had one center. Remember, that was the year they had 4 tackles at the 2 tackles in the guard spots. And Kyle was like, well, they're going to regress in pass blocking. So,
right.
They're definitely going to go. They're definitely going to go over. So Kyle did take the over.
Okay.
And good news for you, you also took the over.
Well, so why would you do that?
To Kyle by a point.
Why would you do that to me?
So yeah, you and Kyle,
here's the bullshit, Austin. Here's the bullshit. Because you also said, I'm gonna save this one for later. You specifically picked one out and said, I'm gonna save this one for last. And I assumed it was for dramatic effect because Kyle and I differed.
No, it was because it was one of my better numbers.
I've never given you power. I don't know why you believed him, Spike says.
So I brought the receipts. Thanks for going through that with me. So yeah, Kyle ends up with 15 points. You end up with 14. So it was really close. You both did okay. Not quite 50%, but not quite 50%, but still pretty good, I would say.
Still mad at you.
That's fair. But yeah, those are the season-long over-under receipts. So thank you guys.
So, okay, hold on. Final score was 15-14. And what was the total again?
With the not giving a damn about Michigan, it was 31.
So it was 32. If I'm trying to like...
No, it was 30.
Oh, okay. So it's... Oh,
don't worry. I have something in the attic, Caitlin.
Yeah, okay. Before
game
you end the show,
Game
1, 2023. What is 11 and a half catches?
Is it Indiana?
No, I think it's 2 cupcakes to Notre Dame, right?
Yeah, Indiana. I said what I said.
No, like cupcakes, not Big Ten
Notre Dame's
cupcakes.
The third game, but is it like I don't know, Kent State and Youngstown State? That sounds something like that.
Yeah, I don't remember. It is Indy. Okay. You were right.
Look at me. Everything's coming up Austin today. Jared, I have one more thing for you in Austin's attic before we close out the show, if that's all right.
Okay. Is it a body?
Your dead body, yes. So I also saw something on Twitter, which again, I know, cesspool, I get it. It's much better than Twitter, discord.thesloopcast.com, but I've been saying that.
Always be plugging.
So always be plugging. I've been seeing this list on Twitter today of Ohio State quarterbacks of the past 15, 20 years. Okay. And just off the top of your head, I want you to rank these quarterbacks in terms of how much you would want them on your team. Just right off the top of your head. There's 8 of them. All Ohio State quarterbacks.
Can I ranking? I'd have to keep track of numbers. Can I? Oh, okay. Oh, you put it in the chat. That helps.
Yeah. I put it in there for you. I had it ready. Don't worry.
Okay.
Sloopcast.
Yeah. Just for now.
If you say them, I'll type them in. Yeah, I might get fired after this episode.
Justin Fields 1, CJ Stroud 2, Dwayne Haskins 3. And I'm just going to acknowledge I have like a pro style quarterback bias. That's just what I would prefer. I'm going to go Braxton here.
Okay.
Then Troy Smith. Then Cardell Jones, JT Barrett, Terrell Pryor.
Terrell Pryor last. Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like
I don't feel like he always had his. I don't feel like he always had his head in the game, if I'm being honest. I feel like that's one of the most important things you need for a quarterback is mental preparation, and I don't think he always had his head in the game 24/7, 365, the way you kind of, maybe not 365, but for 4 or 5 months. And I don't think he was that. If we're talking physical
tattoos, yeah.
I don't care about the tattoos. I mean, in all honesty, none of that is one, a big deal. Two, most importantly, why Ohio State got in trouble. Ohio State got in trouble because Tressel lied about it, because he knew and he covered it up. But anyway,
I think Stroud over Fields is oh boy. All right. I think Fields has to be number 1 on this list.
I think it's a conversation. Sure. And I think that's a huge compliment to CJ Stroud, quite frankly.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I don't know. You have to have your head in the game as a quarterback, I think is my primary issue with Terrell Pryor. I think
all right.
If we're talking pure athleticism, if we're talking just that, he's probably on my list, but probably 3rd or 4th. I'd probably bump him up to 3rd or 4th if we're talking about physical gifts.
I think you're definitely taking Justin Fields and Braxton Miller over him in terms of just athleticism. Definitely. I don't think there's any argument there. But
he's even in the conversation, I would say, to surpass Stroud if we're talking pure physical gifts. But again, I think there's a whole lot of off the field you need to do in order to be a great quarterback, and I don't think he always put that work in.
Jared, Wasteland episode, which, for those of you that don't know, we consider the Wasteland the time after spring ball until about fall camp rolls around. Just episodes talking about random Ohio State stuff or even national football stuff. We're going to have an episode where there will be
well, don't talk about that. Don't talk about that. I don't want anyone to steal that idea.
Yeah, you're right. I apologize. Yeah.
That's a good idea. Don't advertise that.
It is a good idea. Yeah. Cut that part out. Kyle in post. Since Kyle does all the editing.
Yeah, right.
Anyways, all that will be happening in the Wasteland. So make sure you tune in at that time too. Some stuff in the works, basically. That's all I got.
I tell you what, we also want to do this Wasteland, a new series called Die on This Hill, where we will invite not just Austin, but other people from our Discord server to come on the show, give a controversial hot take, and then defend it.
It'll be a good time.
I think
at the very least.
At the very least. And if it's not, I'll just make fun of the person.
Which is also, I mean, you guys saw what I did this episode. That's basically more fun.
I need revenge. I've been bullied, and now I need to do some bullying.
I honestly don't blame you. So.
That's how that works. All right. That was Austin's Attic. We plugged the Discord. We plugged the Patreon. T-shirts. You can get t-shirts at 7071.thesloopcast.com, which is a bunch of just like Ohio stuff. And there's just merch.thesloopcast.com, which is not Ohio State stuff. Lawyers, chill.
Be very clear.
Be very OSU legal. It's not Ohio State stuff. But it is Sloopcast stuff that features a familiar color pattern. A familiar color pattern. And the shapes of a state in particular. So it's a state, and that state is Ohio, but it's not Ohio State.
Right.
Yeah. Austin, do you want to pick the music on the way out?
I'm never going to say no to playing to Vapors. So
okay.
Playing to Vapors is what it'll be. Do I want to pick a song?
Yeah, pick a song. Everyone check out the YouTube channel. Again, you can go to youtube.thesloopcast.com. That's our YouTube channel. But most people watch us, which is totally fine by me, over on the Buckeye Huddle YouTube channel. So if you subscribe to that, you don't just get our podcast, you get a bunch of fantastic content from Buckeye Huddle, including player interviews, podcasts from Tom Orr and Tony Gerdeman, and a bunch of the wonderful people over at Buckeye Huddle. Do you have anything yet, Austin? Do I need to keep talking? We're on all of your favorite. Okay, go ahead. Okay. I was just vamping to give you time to find a song. Because I'm a fucking professional.
Professional, obviously, yeah. One more thing, because Jared, I don't think ever says this too much. Sometimes he does, but leave a comment on the YouTube video. Give it a like. Like the algorithm is a real thing, and it would be really nice to get these videos out to some more people. So you're sitting there on your phone. You're laying on your bed. Your phone is underneath your hand. It takes like 2 seconds to just scroll, type "Hello, Jared."
Yeah, it doesn't even.
Please.
It doesn't even have one. Just hit the like button, and the comment doesn't even have to be like intelligent. You can seriously go into your emoji keyboard, give me a thumbs up, then put an ellipsis, and then flip me the bird. That if you don't know what else to leave a comment, just leave that comment on the YouTube channel. Thumbs up. Just kidding. And then that's your comment. So doing that. See, Spikes is already on board.
Or you could even make fun of Harbaugh, which is, always a fun thing to do. So
I tell you what, if you all right, here, maybe we should do a question at the end of each episode, and people can answer the question in the comments. How many? This is a favorite one on the Discord. It's also, if you want a preview of what exactly we do in the Discord, it's this shit. How many hot dogs could Harbaugh fit in his pockets? Now we can't do this has led to a lot of like back and forth Q&As. So let me just answer some of the common ones. They are his game khakis. You can use all 4 of the pockets. He can use all 4 of the pockets. They have to remain intact. You cannot like puree. No cargo pockets is his game khakis. You got 4 pockets. There's no like pureeing or crushing to make room for more hot dog. They have to be intact hot dog. If the hot dog gets squeezed or deformed a little bit, that's fine. But if you pierce the skin of the hot dog, that's no longer a hot dog. For the sake of this argument.
Does this include the buns?
No. Pure hot dogs.
So what's interesting about this is this kind of stuff we usually talk about after we click end recording. So let's go ahead and get to that, Jared.
We aren't talking about this. The people in the comments are talking about this. This is for them. We've had this argument in the Discord server already.
It's true.
Are these broken in or new khakis? I tell you what, the reference are the khakis he was wearing against TCU. Those are your reference. Look at the game vid against TCU. That's your point. That's your reference point.
Point of reference. Yeah.
Point of reference. All right. That's it. That's the end of the show. Austin, what song are we doing?
We're going to listen to A New Direction by Playing Vapors.
All right. So you already heard Austin say it. So with all that being said, I'd like to encourage everyone to drink local beer, listen to local music, and of course, support your local podcasters. Once again, this is A New Direction by Playing to Vapors.